Hi, Hillary Raven Porter here, multidimensional healer and starseed oracle. And today, spiritually speaking, we are decoding the language of the divine. So often there's these words bandied about. I've also fallen prey to this where you're like talking with somebody and they're just using these words and you're like, yeah, totally, 100%. But in the back of your head, you have an idea of what they mean, but you don't actually know what they fully mean. Like the whole gambit of what they encompass, right? So that's what we're doing. We're decoding these words. And I'm learning some new stuff too. It's pretty awesome. I'm getting more of a depth. So I'm just like, oh, okay. So it's easier to access these sources, right? So today we're talking about the fourth dimension. We're going through the 12 dimensions of decoding the language. And so the fourth dimension, so we talked about the first dimension, which was atoms, molecules, the mineral world. The second dimension is plants and animals. The third dimension, we talked about this reality that we are in right now. You can always go back and check them out on my feed. The videos I've posted before, so go check those out. So I'm not going to dive into those too much. But today is the fourth dimension. Today is the astral realms. The astral realms, fourth dimension, 4D. So this is a lot of where I work in the work that I do with people. From connecting into my guides to some of the light codes that come through, to the distance healing, to the implantation of sacred geometry and crystals within the structure and within the light bodies to create change within this reality. That's where it's happening, right? So what's included in the 4D? So there's a lovely little list here. We've got magic, we've got time travel, we've got karma, reincarnation, luck, psychic surgeries. So this is a lot of what my Pleiadian guides do, where they go in and they tinker, not in a bad way, in a good way. They go in with their light tools. And they, especially the voice box, they love going in there and helping you express your voice as it needs to be heard, right? And so they go in and they adjust things and add things and take things away, and that's the psychic surgeries. People also do this when we connect into the astral realms. Also like medical intuitives, right? Or if they go in and they do all these little tweaks and adjustments, that's where they're doing it, is in the fourth realm. Mind reading, also when you have disembodied spirits happening, when we're connecting into those, all of that, okay? So where have you heard about astral realms? A big one that you might have heard of is astral traveling. Astral traveling. Someone's like, oh yeah, I totally astral travel. Someone's like, I want to learn how to astral travel. Well, what is that? That is when you are accessing the fourth dimension and you're doing other things within this realm. This is where your twin flame, astral twin, not twin flame, where your astral twin lives. So this is your full self, complete self, is acting at the same time as you are now, but not in a physical form. Right? Crazy, yeah? Astral traveling can happen a lot during sleep. So lucid dreaming, let's say, right? Lucid dreaming is where you can affect change within the dream, and you know you're dreaming. I'm putting quote unquotes in dreaming because this is a lot of astral traveling. So you know you're dreaming. And so you're like, oh, no, that can't happen. I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to do that instead. Yeah? Astral traveling. You can wake up feeling completely unrested. You're like, it's not like I didn't sleep. Because literally, you close your eyes in the 3D realm and you open your eyes in the 4D realm. So this physical 3D realm body is settled in for the night. But you aren't. You're just like, woo, here I go. I'm going to go have a whole nother lifetime, daytime happening when this physical body is sleeping. So you'll come back and you'll feel exhausted because you haven't fully been tethered, possibly. So you're actually wandering and you may have had a hard time coming back into this physical body. This is also where you'll be like, oh, you and I were hanging out last night in dream space. Fourth dimension. Especially the best is when you talk to somebody about that and they're like, oh yeah, I totally remember last night, blah, 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 and we did this and we did that. Because you guys met in the fourth dimension, okay? This is also the space. Oh, there's something else I wanted to say about the astral traveling at night. Yes, lots can happen, and you can access different healing portals, but you can also impede your 3D realm by not being tethered or rested, and the coming back can feel really jarring when you wake up. So sometimes, you know, you'll be having these crazy dreams. You wake up like this, and it's just really jarring. It's a bit disorienting. It's that re-entry into the 3D realm. Okay. This is also the tunnel. When you're going down to that near-death experience, well, maybe you haven't, I haven't either yet, but down that near-death experience that people talk about, this is that tunnel. The 4th D is the tunnel that is taking them down to that light. Okay. Flow state. Flow state. You know, when you get into that, I also like to call it the space of awe, where just like everything is in harmony, everything just seems to be flowing along, tickety-boo, everything is synchronistic. You're like, oh, all these things are happening that are in alignment with me. This is that flow state. But how are you going to access this flow state more and more? So to access the 4th dimension, that's where the spirit work and the consciousness work comes into play. That's where you're accessing the 4D realm. But it can be hard to access this realm if we've experienced trauma. But why is that? It's hard when we've experienced trauma because it sits within our cellular structure and it is a dense energy. And remember, as we're moving up the dimensions from the 1st to the 12th, what's happening? We're getting to a finer and finer vibration. Trauma settles in the body, which is interesting because when we have a traumatic experience, we can, depending on the depth of it, in relation to ourselves, because everybody's different, right? Lost track. Depending on like the trauma. So we can feel disembodied within the trauma, right? But it's in our bodies. So we're like, yeah, but I feel totally disembodied and I don't feel it in my body. That's because then there's this disconnect between the vibrational levels that is happening. But you are stuck in this body and you can't amalgamate the two sides. You can't actually integrate the two vibrations because they're so disjointed. There's too much of a gap. And so through healing our trauma, releasing our trauma, we increase our vibration and raise our vibration, which brings us then closer to the higher self state again, right? And when there's less distance, we're able to integrate more easily. So again, through the spirit work, through the healing, find a healer, align with a healer that feels right for you, that vibrationally feels like there's a connection for you to help you on this path. You don't have to do these things alone. The work is always our own, but we can get support through that. Yeah. I often hear people talk about the spirit work and they're just like, no, I do it on my own. I don't need support. I don't need a guru. You don't need a guru. But also then they're like, oh, but it's okay if you get counseling, if you've been through an experience and you need assistance. So that's the thing, is the counselor's not healing you, but they're offering you guidance from the experience and the training that they have had. It's the same thing with the healers and with spirit work. Yeah. Okay. Forms. So we were talking about astral traveling and lucid dreaming. So forms in this realm, in the 4D realm, morph naturally. So think about dream space. Think about dreamscape, where you're seeing, let's say all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm riding on a lion, and now that lion all of a sudden is morphed into a Pegasus and we're flying. That's that natural morphing, right? Which also relates to, in the 4th realm, is how we do things in the 3D realm. What does that mean? So for example, if you want to move from one place to another, like walk through walls, levitation, those kinds of things, in the 3D realm, you are accessing the 4th dimension to do that. Or if you're like, oh, I put that item here, and then you turn around, you look back and you're like, it's not there, but now it's over there. That's a 4D highway within the 3D realm, right? It's the highway that you've accessed. I just totally got the image of the Jetsons. right? How they're like, oh, I'm just gonna get in my car, and they go from one port to another port, one place to another, but they're like hovering in the air. That's kind of like the 4D highway, but in the 3D realm. Okay, we talked about that. So it's funny, I have notes here, I have notes there, I kind of got notes everywhere, right? I want to make sure all my research and all my own personal experience, I'm making sure I want to share that with you as much as I can. So this is where negative entities, distortions, and where and the negative entities are, but also where they attach. So we talked about the astral traveling and how you can feel untethered and brought back down, right? And it's easy to go like, oh, I went astral travel, but how do I reconnect? Because sometimes too, we're like, I prefer it in this astral realm and I don't want to come back. So how, when we're doing that, if we're feeling untethered, this is also where these negative entities can be like, oh, I see a chink in your armor. Here we go, I'm attaching myself. Right? And that's where we get these distortions as well. Without the proper container, as we are traveling in these realms, we can feel distorted and not know what reality is. Reality has many layers. So by when I say not know what reality is, I don't mean the 3D reality. I also mean because as you're accessing the spirit realms, especially in the beginning, you can be like, what is real and what isn't? I hear voices, I speak in tongues. I have these knowings. I was able to affect change. I was able, with like talking to the trees, I was able to affect the wind. I was able to teleport from here to here. But what is real and what is not within that? And in our culture, we're often told that a lot of those things mean that you have psychosis. There are some disconnections and some psychoses that, yes, need medical assistance, but there's also the spirit realm work. So the distortions can happen when we don't have the container and we're like, what is going on? And again, that goes back to having a guide, a healing guide in this 3D realm, a healer that you align with that can help you walk that path and help you discern, yeah, that is legit. Or what, like, let's figure out what's going on for you and how to create that safe container for you. Because you also need boundaries within this realm, right? And I find a lot of people, as they're first accessing the fourth dimension, it is a bit disorienting. It's even like being in a fully different culture, you know? Like if I go from here in Canada, Victoria, to Africa, that's going to be a completely different experience. And it can be disoriented and jarring. Even within where I currently live, I could go to an event and I'm like, whoa, what is going on? This is not my usual environment. And how do you interact with that? So it's the same as you're moving up the steps of your spiritual ascension. Okay. Yes. Oh, and I want to talk about, so the astral traveling and that disconnection and disorientation and feeling untethered. A big part as well is our physical body within that. How are you taking care of your physical body? And one of the big things is, do you have enough blood within you? And I think of blood. Blood is iron, right? If you're anemic, for example, you're iron deficient. What is iron? Iron is the earth weight holding you down. It is holding you solidly to the earth. The iron, the magnetism. Well, if you're lacking iron in your blood, that allows the air, the wind, the ethers, and you start floating away. And it's hard to stay connected. So it's very, very important to have those physical spaces. I'm like using my hands a lot today. Yeah. So again, back to that spirit work and physical and making sure that you are taking care of both aspects, right? This is also relates, the fourth dimension also relates to Kundalini and the spine. So Kundalini is the serpent rising up the spine, right? It starts at the base, the lotus flower, and as you release it, that energy goes up and spirals up the spine. It makes me think of Artemisia absinthium, so wormwood. Wormwood can activate that serpent up the spine. And this, when we've activated this Kundalini in the spine energy, we are activating that consciousness. We are awakening that consciousness within us, that spiritual consciousness, that connection, that energetic connection to the divine, that expansiveness. I keep getting this image of the lotus flower, just like, right? Absolutely gorgeous, absolutely breathtaking, mesmerizing, and so intense. Again, back to that safe container. Safe container. And everybody's container looks different, and it takes the effort and it takes the work. We have to tone that spiritual muscle, right? Yeah. I think, yeah, I think that's it. 4D. We still have 8 to go. So thank you so much for joining me. I always appreciate it. I always am glad to be here to share some of these awesome little tidbits that I come across along my way. And yeah, make sure to take a peek down below. There's other ways that we can connect through sessions, through my Facebook, Instagram, all the different ways that you can follow me. Also a PayPal link down there if you feel so inclined to support the processes that are happening on this end, so I can keep showing up for you. Yeah, and if you have any questions, please reach out. If you have any suggestions for things that you're like, I really would like to know more about this, I'm here. Okay? So much love and Stardust, and make sure to subscribe, because then you'll get all the info as it comes out. You'll know when every video comes out. Okay, so much love and Stardust, and I will talk to you soon.